Learning online. Learn, unlearn, relearn.
All right, we have midterms coming in, right? At least due by close of business today anyway. How's the pacing? Too fast? Too slow? Just right?
A lot of reading.
Yeah, it is.
You asked.
I did.
Do you have a stapler?
I do not. You can do the tearing corner trick. Now that
Do you
one?
have a stapler?
No. Do the tearing corner trick.
Don't know that trick.
Goes like this. Yeah, like that. And then fold that down. And go.
Probably jiggered.
Learned that in 4th grade. All right, where were we? Craving. The Crave. Nida and Company.
Hey, Mark.
Yes. Oh, there you are.
Question, I was making sure from Commerce Grove, I could see the agents in your office mailing to you for the test and my final psychosocial recon paper without it being late, right?
If I heard that correctly, if you did that today, one of them would be late, yes.
Okay, yeah, I know that the biopsychosocial paper would be late.
Yes.
I just want to make sure when I turn in my test, that's not going to be late.
Go ahead.
All right.
Anyway,
Commerce Grove.
turn them both in. I'll consider them. Both.
Okay, thank you.
Life happens. The vicissitudes of fate. The slings and arrows of outrageous whatever.
Our lovely government system.
Yeah, well, you know. To err is human. To really screw things up takes a computer. To really, really screw things up takes a government with a computer. Anyway. The other day when I was talking about what cravings are persistent thoughts that are repeated. You can basically think of them as, if it's convenient for you, as basically the part of lizard brain that repeats a solution that may have worked once but doesn't work anymore, but it still repeats it without thinking about it over and over and over and over. Basic, can I eat it? Will it eat me? Repeat pleasure. Oh, this worked before. Keep doing it. So unless you have been taught actually to control the thought waves of the mind, I'm quoting Patanjali. Probably you've never heard of Patanjali, correct? Okay. It's all right. Patanjali basically wrote a definitive treatise on yoga something like 3,000 years ago. Yoga is actually 6,000 to 10,000 years old. But I just used this simile before, so I'm going to try it on you guys, see what you think. 1 century of civilization equals 1 year of human life. So potentially, so here's how that works. Western civilization then, the civilization that requires us to speak English only, and basically follow, I'm mixing in a little bit of ethnic studies here, follow the Columbus discovered America narrative. Basically it says nothing happened here of any note before 1492. So therefore there's no history. So let's say Western civilization, if I'm going to be charitable with it, starts at after the Dark Ages, which means it's about 700 years old. So if I use that formula, then Western civilization is 7. And therefore America is 2. Those of you who are parents know how 2-year-olds act. Do you trust them for wisdom? No. No. Okay? In that sense, Americans are like 2-year-olds with nukes and cell phones. Yeah, we're technologically advanced, but as far as knowing about life, how the mind works, et cetera, no. We're not there. So I was talking, basically, it's not the first time I've talked about this, but I just came off of talking to a group of international students, many of whom come from cultures older than America. You know, one of the points about making, let's help Iraq rebuild the country. And I go, there are sewers in Baghdad older than America. What are you going to teach them? For real. Not much. Like last time when I basically talked about China going through prohibition 10 times in 3,000 years. So I asked a Chinese person in this class, how old is your calendar? Oh, about 5,500 years old, 5,000 years old. So using this formula, China is a culture that's 55. Western civilization is 7. Who are you going to look to for experience and wisdom? In terms of how do you build strong prevention systems? So the reason I've talked about looking at craving as persistent thought. Let's talk about the people that talk about how you control your thoughts. And I'm not talking about mind control from external, like, you've got a puppeteer, the system's controlling you. How do you do that internally? So Patanjali, about 3,000 years ago, basically said the aim of, and he was talking about yoga in particular, is to control thought waves. That's how he described it. Of the mind. And a craving is basically like, think of it like a tsunami, because people's impulses often feel like that. Where did this big wave come from? How do I stop it? They keep coming, and then there's smaller waves. How do I control it? Well, dating back to before Patanjali and the martial arts systems that came out of Africa and the East, basically mind follows the breath. Slow the breath down, you slow the mind down. Or at least part of your experience of it. That's uncontrollable. So you get to a point where you don't take the thought that you used to take so seriously at all. Like if you're concerned about, for example, what people think. Well, who are they? Why do you care what they think? Who are they to you? Do they have life and death power over you? Are they paying the rent? Why do you care what they think? So part of controlling the thought waves of the mind. So one of the easiest techniques in terms of looking at breath, controlling cravings. One of the things that we do within treatment is basically have clients stay away from shaky persons, places, or things. People they used to use with. Places they used to use with. I haven't done the fire engine trick yet, have I? No? Andre asked me why fire engines are red. No. Why are fire engines red? And then say yes after I give you an answer. Okay? Well, Andre, the type of fire engine we're talking about has 4 ladders and 3 men, right? Yes. Everybody knows that 3 times 4 is 12. Yeah. And there's 12 inches in a ruler. Yeah. And Queen Elizabeth, she was a ruler. Yeah. And she had ships that sailed the sea. Yeah. And in the sea, there are fish. And the fish have fins. Yes. And the Finns fought the Russians. Yes. And that's why fire engines are red, Andre, because they're always Russian. Okay, so memory is associative. All right? Cocaine, for example, all right, craving, all right, so cocaine is not physically addictive unless you consider the brain part of the body. And you're going, Mark, of course the brain's part of the body. Well, no. According to Manichaean psychology, which is, you didn't know that that's what your psychology is based on, there is a mind-body split. Okay? And in that framework, the mind is supposed to be superior or basically being able to control the body. Ha, ha, ha. Right. Okay? So, point being, cocaine is active in one part of the brain, the reward system, the nucleus accumbens, and when you withdraw from cocaine, it isn't the body that's going through withdrawal, it's the brain that's producing cravings. So that's why I can say it's not physically addicting, because it's not in the body, it's in the brain, which is not to say that it isn't real, but you are producing persistent cravings. Now, because memory is associative, like that joke doesn't work until you get the punchline. Otherwise, it seems off the wall. Okay? So, dare. Drugs are really expensive. Okay? Cocaine is expensive. So, how do people get money? Like, what's the going rate for a gram of coke on the street today? $100. Okay. I want to point out something to you. When you get to work in the field, you better know that. Better know spot prices. Get them from clients or whatever. But it's been basically $100 for years, so same with grams of meth or whatever, right? $100, right? So how do people get money? Work. And when and how are their paychecks deposited? Cash. Sometimes some people have cash, and sometimes other people do what to get money legally? When they want to withdraw, do they go to a bank or they go to a ATM? Okay, so memory is associative. If I want to score a gram of Coke, what do I first have to do?
Draw some money out of an ATM.
Draw money out of an ATM, call my dealer. Ready to go, right? So, the sight of an ATM triggers cravings for cocaine. The sight of money triggers cravings for cocaine. My dealer has a candy blue Mustang. Every time I see a blue car of any description, it triggers craving for cocaine. My dealer lives behind a white picket fence. Seeing a white picket fence triggers craving for cocaine. Every time I had sex on cocaine, if I see somebody that is remotely attractive, boom, triggers craving for cocaine. So this issue of craving is, very central to what we do, because literally with certain drugs and many drugs, the associations with those drugs can trigger cravings all over. The entire environment is a trigger. So what to do? Oh, stay away from shaky persons, places, and things. Yeah, okay, good. What else? What else do we say? Develop something to do with those cravings. Okay, what else? So, what?
Develop some kind of mantra you say in the morning or some kind of technique to deal with it when you see them.
Okay, so, all right. You use the word mantra. What does that mean?
I don't know the exact definition, but something you say to yourself as a motivation or a redirect you in some kind of sense that you, I don't know, in the morning, like if you're to say, like, I can do this or I can get through it, I can get through it. It's a daily repetitive saying you say to yourself.
Okay, now I want you to notice something. You haven't read Patanjali yet, have you? Okay, so the word mantra comes out of Patanjali. Man, M-A-N, mind, tra, ki. Patanjali, in this particular framework, which is also Buddhist, which is also, deep Christian, that is the African forms of Christianity. Basically, thoughts are like waves in the mind. And so in order to control your thoughts, you have to set up a repetitive wave that overcomes the smaller waves so that pretty soon the only thought in your head is the one that you keep pushing, that mantra, and even that goes away. And then you have, if we're using the simile or the metaphor, the mind is like a pond and thoughts are like the ripples. You calm the pond, you can see deeper into your mind and live there. And then once you live the deeper parts of your mind, the thoughts on the surface don't affect you in the same way. Okay, so you use that very language, mantra. It's Patanjali, among others. All right, and the idea is, okay, I'm not going to use today, or you can frame it, I'm going to stay clean today, and you just keep repeating that in the face of the cravings, which are, so there's that level. That's where that came from, in terms of controlling the craving and understanding what cravings are and what can trigger them. So partially, if we teach people how to deal with those cravings, that helps. But we also have to stretch them out in terms of their clean time so that they have more experience with clean time and less experience with giving in to those cravings. And so one of the things that we find in terms of looking at, the reason I said, all right, so Patanjali was, the culture that produced Patanjali, in this framework, that when I'm saying a century of civilization and a year of human life, they're 30, 40, and 50. Coming out of older civilizations that developed that particular technology. Now, us Americans being 2-year-olds with nukes and computers, we use other strategies which may be effective, but remember, we're the medical field, and we're in a medical field that is basically 1.5 years old by this framework. With treatment being itself less than 6 months in that same framework. We look at it that way. 60 years. All right, so with technology, i.e. brain imaging research, go to slide if you would, thanks. So brain imaging research revealing signals or cues that may spark an addicted person's desire to take drugs can be incredibly subtle or quick. Expanded knowledge about craving helps scientists develop new medical treatments for addiction. So one of the things we see with neuroscience is that the triggers for craving happen faster than conscious thought. Without you being able to stop it until basically you've had a couple of craving thoughts already from a trigger that happened a minute ago or minutes ago. Or you didn't even start realizing that it was happening till you're already in the middle of it. So in this Western psychological framework, cravings, powerful desires, part of the human condition. Our brains are hardwired to appreciate and pursue natural rewards such as food and sex because of their critical survival value. Drugs used by addicted people activate the same circuits that motivate food and sexual behavior. Signals called cues can be sights, sounds, smells, or thoughts. Cues activate the brain's powerful go circuit, creating cravings. Cravings for alcohol and other drugs can be even stronger than those for food or sex, depending on the associations. Now, that joke that I just ran with Andre is an old Firesign Theater bit that I learned when I was stoned in high school because I thought it was really funny at the time, but then I used it to explain to people, okay, well, why am I having these cravings? When I just passed somebody in the corridor, here. I said, well, what did it smell like? It smelled like meth. Like you may or may not have noticed, but people have a characteristic smell when they're detoxing alcohol, even if they haven't drunk, and meth addicts have the same thing. Potheads reek. I mean, we notice these things. You can't see smells. I'm not talking about being on acid and seeing smells. You can't see smells. It's an unconscious cue. You might not realize it, but physiologically, where your nose is and the smell centers they're part of lizard brain. So of course they're going to trigger you and keep triggering you unconsciously. Like, I didn't see anything. I just smelled something, and it wasn't BO, it was, they're detoxing. Right? So, and where this came from is basically the NIDA website. So if you haven't, got hip to NIDA, look, it's your tax dollars at work. You might as well get hip to it. There's lots of stuff there that is really useful. NIDA, NIDA, National Institute of Drug Abuse, part of the National Institutes of Health. When I was quoting Dr. Volko, she's the head of NIDA, has been the head of NIDA for better part of a decade, Brazilian MD. Basically talking about, okay, we need to develop the science of this, and basically it's NIDA and other institutes of health that are developing the research and the science, at least for our country. So, managing cravings associated with food, sex, and drugs is the responsibility of the brain's inhibitory stop circuitry. Research suggests that some people have better stop systems or better brakes than others. somewhat where they're identifying this is basically when we're talking about the four brains. In angel brain, i.e. the prefrontal cortex, is where the stop circuitry is primarily seen to exist, though that conception itself, remember, is still less than 20 years old. We're still doing research. It may change. Our understanding might change with that too. Individuals with weaker brakes may have much greater difficulty managing cravings, putting them at increased risk for addiction and or relapse. So again, because this is NIDA, and the point of view is, well, all the brakes are in the brain, so therefore we have to look at developing people's willpower. You've heard that? Maybe those of you who took the previous class knew the book Willpower is Not Enough. Well, if we went to a brain gym, how do you do a weight circuit for developing willpower? Well, what are the exercises to develop willpower? What is the will? You see, if humans, the way we work, you have to have a specific set of exercises to develop these kind of skills. And they don't exist in Western psychology. I mean, we may talk about mantra, but mantra didn't come from Western psychology. And then you may have heard the word, but not been associated with the practice. So some of the practices, like that I've recommended and that some treatment agencies have recommended, is basically people doing yoga, meditation, martial arts, other things to pattern physical activity that goes along with aiding developing those brakes. Because sometimes the way people learn, they can't just sit and absorb it and get the lesson that way. They actually have to do something. And the muscle, then the grounding of the learning actually gets into their muscles in their physical body. Yeah.
So then after a while, that picket fence and the ATM becomes a trigger for doing that mantra.
Could be. Yes, you can shift it that way. You can notice, all of a sudden I'm having this craving, I should do something else. So it can shift over, yes, correct. If I hear you implying that, yes, you can do it that way. Yeah, and so exposure to some drugs may actually weaken the brain's braking system, especially if they're targeted to those particular areas of the brain. So they'll talk about, so for example, recent so cravings have their beginnings outside conscious awareness. Recent brain imaging shows that drugs and sexual cues as brief as 33 milliseconds, so breaking a second into a thousandth, and 33 of those can activate the brain go circuit even though the person is not conscious of the cues. Because remember what normal waking consciousness is. Normal waking consciousness is already filtered for you to pay attention to what's happening here. You are filtering out billions of signals, only some of which you could even put into language. Let's say, in my yoga training, we say the brain has somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 thoughts per second. And in meditation, you're basically just trying to make one dominant while dealing with the distraction of sitting down and focusing on like the tip of your nose while watching your breath and slowing your breath to a particular rhythm. Okay, and that rhythm, for example, would be slowing it down from 20 to 30 breaths per minute, like when I'm on the freeway. Why are these Oregonians driving so slow? To, really, I don't need to do 70 up 30th. I can slow down. LCC isn't going anywhere. Okay, slowing my breath down to 4 breaths a minute, 1 every 15 seconds. Oh, it's okay. Not stressing about the parking place. One will open up. I'll just have my little crystal angel find me a parking place. So, in addition to cue-induced craving, desire can also be fueled by small sample of the drug, food drug rewarding activity, the salty peanut effect, right? The Lay's potato chip, just eat one. The wish to avoid negative effects such as drug withdrawal and negative moods. Many people with addictions have a co-occurring mood disorder, anxiety or depression. These moods can themselves be triggers for food or drug craving, increasing the risk of relapse. So, curing your depression with a quart of Haagen-Dazs rum raisin. Oh, maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you're Bibi Netanyahu and you like pistachio. There's a scandal about the Israeli prime minister who spent $2,700 of government money on ice cream.
Over how long of a period of time?
Yeah, well, even if that's a year, $2,700 for pistachio ice cream? Okay. A government expense? Yeah. Yeah, I know. I thought about that too, but I think it was a year, but it's still a scandal, right? Yeah, 2,700. I mean, just break that down to like daily or monthly. That's serious. I mean, really, yeah, 2,700 even in a year.
See,
What?
more than one wife and stuff, I don't know.
No. Well, no. Israelis don't go into more than one wife. So, yeah. So, or the ancient Israelis did, but the current ones don't. He's not the French president. This is the Israeli president. His wife apparently likes French vanilla. So, all right. So anyway, the reason we had you do the food mood diaries is for this very reason, to look at, okay,
But
you can trigger these moods and these cravings and all that other kind of stuff. So back to the tesseract hypercube before we get into ASAM criteria. So let's say that you are a person in the center of the inner cube there. And let's see. So the hero is the teller of the tale. Now, that's an African proverb that means three things. One, a person telling the story makes themselves bigger in the story every time they tell it. Okay? Your enemy is never a bad person in their own eyes. And how would your enemy tell the story of how they burned you? Would they? They would say it's your fault. And often we see this in the narrative with clients. This stuff got done to me. I'm a victim. Bad stuff happened to me. This is how I had to deal with it. I mean, somebody just came to you, Mark, my PO is after me. Like, well, why is your PO after me? Well, he found out that I wasn't living where I said I was living. Yeah. And I had to drop a pee sample, and I just had to eat a joint and 3 oxys, and it's going to be dirty. Right, you're on paper, so why are you even having that stuff and smoking weed? It's part of the terms of your conditions for probation you're not supposed to use, right? Well, I didn't sign that paper. Not relevant. They're doing it to you? No, keep your act together. Well, I needed you to slap me around. No, I'm not slapping you. This is common sense. If you know they're watching you, don't do anything to mess up. Well, they're going to send me to emergency, and I'm not going to sit through that. Look. Yes. Stop using. Got a script for the oxys? No. Okay. Stop using. Do you want to do, what are they going to do? Send me to jail? No, prison. You like being free? You like coming here, talking to me? Right? Stop playing the victim. Control your destiny. So hero is the teller of the tale. The hero will tell the tale that makes them look good. Right? In the program, 12-step program, we call it your look good. Everybody has to maintain their look good. So that's one. The hero tells a tale that makes them look bigger in the story. Two, the second part, every time they tell the story, if there is anybody else in the story, those person's role gets smaller and theirs gets bigger till they disappear. Right? Columbus discovered America. Hero is the teller of the tale. Well, who did he discover? Come on, you know this. Huh? Yeah, Columbus. Who did Columbus discover? Native American people. Which nation of the Native American people? Somewhere, okay, all right. So notice, all right, we know, I mean, you see what I'm doing here, right? The hero's the teller of the tale, and if it's the Columbus discovered America narrative, that is the story, you know that Columbus discovered America on October 12, 1492, and he discovered Indians, but you can't identify which nation, which tribe, or even the island, or what the natives called the island, or what the natives were called.